January 1944. The Pacific War entered a new, relentless phase. For the United States Navy, the strategic imperative was clear: push westward, advance toward the Japanese home islands, and dismantle the Imperial Navy's defensive perimeter. This aggressive expansion, however, would be defined not just by firepower, but by an unprecedented advantage. For months, Allied codebreakers had been meticulously unraveling Japanese communications, unveiling the enemy's strategic intentions. Admiral Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, received crucial insights. He learned that Admiral Koga, the formidable commander of Japan's combined fleet, had largely written off the marshals. Koga understood his fleet was in no shape to do battle, and planned to withdraw westward, establishing a new defensive line through the Marianas and Palaus. Crucially, intelligence also revealed the relative weakness of Kwajalein, stripped of many trained soldiers for other fronts, leaving only some 2,200 fighting men and approximately 7,000 laborers. Even more significant, the island of Majuro was virtually unoccupied. This intelligence fundamentally altered Nimitz's strategy. Traditional amphibious doctrine called for a two-stage capture of the marshals, a concept amphibious experts called two bites. But Nimitz rejected this. Instead, he made a bold, intelligence-driven decision: to bypass heavily defended islands like Maloelap, Watja, and Mili. This choice would drastically reduce American casualties. On January 31, 1944, the Marshals' invasion commenced. The capture of undefended Majuro was swift and bloodless, with not a single U.S. abreast, with not a single U.S. minute casualty. This virtually unoccupied island would quickly be transformed into a vital forward operating base, shortening U.S. of coast submarine operational distances by 2,000 miles. Kwajalein, though lightly defended compared to others, still presented fierce resistance. Its capture cost 372 American lives and 1,582 wounded. 265 prisoners were taken, a rare occurrence in the Pacific theater, comprising 100 Japanese soldiers and 165 Korean laborers. The success in the Marshals, underpinned by codebreaking, demonstrated a new paradigm in naval warfare. But the story of intelligence-driven victory was just beginning. With confirmed intelligence of Koga's fleet withdrawal from Truk, Nimitz ordered Operation Hailstone. On February 16th and 1744, U.S. 16th and 1744, carrier planes descended upon Truk, the Gibraltar of the Pacific, now largely devoid of its battleships and carriers. The strike was devastating. Some 200,000 tons of Japanese shipping was sunk, including 2 light cruisers, 4 destroyers, and 24 merchant ships. Approximately 250 to 275 Japanese planes were destroyed. Truk was effectively neutralized as a major Japanese naval base. This intelligence, dubbed ULTRA, also guided American submarines. Admiral Lockwood, the Pacific submarine commander, leveraged these intercepts to direct his boats to intercept fleeing Japanese units or target critical resupply attempts. The USS Skipjack, under Commander George Garvey Mullarphy, sank the destroyer Susukos and the seaplane tender Okatiz Maru of 6,666 tons, while reinforcing Eniwetok. This dangerous patrol saw Skipjack experience a flooding casualty in its after-torpedo room, a stark reminder of the ever-present dangers. The USS Permit, under Commander Carter Bennett, damaged a seaplane tender and attacked a convoy, enduring repeated depth charge attacks and bombings. Permit reported sighting 2 battleships, possibly even the mighty Yamato, and 2 Mogami-class heavy cruisers leaving Truk. She even fired torpedoes at an aircraft carrier from 9,000 yards. The USS Trigger, under Commander Dusty Domin, sank the submarine tender Yasukuni Maru, of 12,000 tons, a significant loss of vital support for the Japanese submarine fleet. She herself experienced a near miss with an escort destroyer. The USS Guardfish sank the destroyer. Umikase off Truk. The USS Skate successfully sank the light cruiser Agano, previously damaged by the USS Scamp and her 2 escort destroyers off Truk. The USS Tang, under Commander Dick O'Kane, sank the freighter Gyoten Maru of 6,800 tons, one of many fleeing Truk. The USS Seahorse, Under Commander Slade Cutter, noted for innovative periscope painting, sank 5 ships on one patrol, including 2 freighters in a single night attack, and pursued a convoy for 80 hours. Such successes, however, came at a cost. 4 Japanese submarines were lost, trying to resupply the Marshalls, one of them the I-175, which had previously sunk the escort carrier Liscombe Bay. Another was sunk the day after rescuing Agano survivors. This period of early 1944 marked a critical escalation in the Pacific Naval War. The effectiveness of Allied submarine tactics grew exponentially, driven by intelligence. The Japanese, meanwhile, were facing increasingly sophisticated attacks against precariously inadequate naval defenses. On February 22, 1944, U.S. in tempora Phi, carrier planes struck Saipan, triggering Japanese fleet movements. From March 30th to 31, another carrier airstrike hit the Palars, leading to multiple submarine patrols for interception and lifeguard duties. These strikes created invaluable opportunities for the newly aggressive U.S. submarine force. Commanders like Dick O'Kane in Tang exemplified daring, close-range attack tactics. In one patrol, O'Kane sank 5 ships for 21,400 tons, a staggering achievement. Tommy Dykers in Jack also conducted a brilliant attack on a tanker convoy, sinking 4 out of 5. Initial tonnage claims were high, at 53,486 tons, later adjusted to 2,441 for the 4 tankers. This nuanced accounting, often revealed in post-war analysis, speaks to the difficulty of confirming sinkings in the chaos of combat. The psychological blow to Japanese naval command was immense. Ultra intercepts revealed their own acknowledgement of an inability to protect critical assets, particularly the vital tanker fleet. The challenges, however, were not solely external. The period from January to April 1944 saw the U.S. submarine force grappling with internal conflicts, bureaucratic infighting, and lingering issues with its primary weapon, the torpedo. Despite incredible heroism, the narrative of seamless naval operations is a myth. The most significant and frustrating hurdle remained the unreliability of American torpedoes. Skippers often found their carefully planned attacks foiled by dud warheads or erratic runs. This was not a secret. Chuck Treble, a highly successful skipper of the USS Snook, became a vocal critic of torpedo performance, filing scathing reports. His reward? Reassignment to the Bureau of Ordnance, a subtle but clear institutional resistance to publicizing fundamental equipment flaws. This move, while perhaps intended to leverage his expertise, also removed a highly effective combat commander from the front lines, demonstrating that even outstanding officers could become casualties of bureaucracy. Admiral Lockwood, while an advocate for his submariners, held firm on certain policies. His insistence on Naval Academy graduates commanding submarines created friction with deserving reservist officers, such as Yard Stockton of the Snook, whose command opportunities were delayed despite his experience. Award politics also surfaced. Disagreements between Admirals Kinkaid and Christie, and between Army and Navy award systems, created distractions, resentment, and potentially undermined morale. The human toll was immense, even for those who survived. Wayne Merrill, commander of the USS Batfish, had to be relieved from command due to mental unfitness, a stark reminder of the psychological strain of relentless combat. And then there were the losses. The USS Scorpion, under Commander Maximilian Gellick-Schmidt, disappeared, possibly to newly discovered Japanese minefields in the East China Sea. The USS Greyhack, commanded by the highly aggressive Johnny Moore, was lost under unknown circumstances off Formosa, with speculation about his daring tactics. The USS Trout, under Albert Clark, achieved a successful attack on a troop transport, only to be lost herself, likely to skilled Japanese destroyers. The USS Gudgeon, under Robert Alexander Bonin, also vanished without a trace, another victim of the unseen war. The tragic loss of the USS Tullaby, under Robert Alexander Bonin, also vanished without a trace. Kukendall was particularly illustrative of technological failure. She was sunk by a circular run of one of her own torpedoes, whose contact exploder, unfortunately, worked as designed, striking the boat after circling back. Kuykendall was one of only 7 survivors who faced harsh internment, Despite these systemic flaws, individual heroism shone through. Benny Bass in Plunger and Ralph Metcalfe in Poggy each achieved highly effective patrols, sinking multiple enemy vessels. Metcalfe, for instance, sank 5 ships, including a Japanese submarine, in one patrol, totaling over 21,000 tons. Malcolm Everett Garrison in Sandlance also demonstrated consistent success, sinking a light cruiser, the Tatsuta of 3,300 tons, and other ships, even enduring 105 depth charges over 18 hours. The USS Flyer, under John Daniel Crowley, experienced a near disaster during her maiden voyage, running aground at Midway. Her survival was a testament to the perseverance of her crew and the robustness of the new Manitowoc boat. Beyond sinkings, submarines undertook vital humanitarian missions. The USS Angler rescued 58 civilians from Wolai, and the USS Nautilus, under Bill Irvin, intercepted and confirmed the sinking of the America Maru, a troop transport carrying civilians. The capture of Japanese codebooks in January 1944 marked a strategic turning point. This intelligence coup fundamentally shifted Allied strategy, particularly for General MacArthur. His Navy intelligence chief, Arthur McCullum, along with Fruma linguists Tom Mackey and Forrest Rosecrans, Bayard, orchestrated the translation efforts. These intercepts allowed MacArthur to achieve near-bloodless advances in New Guinea, bypassing heavily defended areas and striking lightly guarded positions at Itape, Humboldt Bay, and Tanamara. This period also saw the formalization of wolf pack tactics by Admiral Lockwood, aiming to concentrate submarine power for greater impact against increasingly well-escorted Japanese convoys. Wolf Packs 4 and 5, for instance, took up station in the Luzon Strait in mid-April. The persistent issue of torpedo unreliability continued to plague operations. The USS Tautog, under Seaglaf and later Tom Basket, illustrates this. In one encounter, Seaglaf required multiple torpedoes to sink a single ship, later sarcastically dubbed a rubber ship due to its resilience. His patrol report confirmed only 1 freighter and 1 escort sunk, despite firing spreads of 3 and 4 torpedoes. Anton Renke Gallagher, commander of the USS Bang, fired 20 torpedoes on 1 patrol, but only 2 confirmed sinkings were attributed. Red Ramage, commander of the USS Parch, in his humorous patrol reports, recounted firing 4 torpedoes at 2 freighters. Don Weiss, commander of the USS Tinosa, who had achieved significant tonnage on a previous patrol, fired 6 torpedoes at a large freighter, obtaining 3 hits that seemed to disintegrate it, followed by 4 more for misses. These accounts underscore the unpredictable nature of early torpedo performance. The psychological and physical toll on submarine crews was immense. The USS Trigger, under Fritz Halfinger, experienced a harrowing, near-fatal attack from Japanese escorts on April 8 and 9. Executive Officer Ned Beach's vivid recollections describe the brutal intensity of 25 depth charges, a testament to the thin line between success and annihilation. The strength and resilience of submarines like the Trigger were direct results of their designers and builders. Even with the intelligence advantage, strategic debates emerged. The USS Haddock, with William Joseph Germeshausen on a PCO cruise, and the USS Tuna, under James Hardin, received an UL-3 intercept on a supply boat. Germeshausen desired to capture the boat intact for its intelligence, but Hardin's early attack led to its sinking, highlighting differing strategic objectives and operational outcomes. Admiral Christie, the overall boss of submarine operations at Brisbane and Milne Bay, was directly engaged in these challenges. He personally initiated studies on torpedo exploders, assigning young Chester Nimitz, who would later command the USS Haddo, and James Lowell Page McCallum to propose improvements for the magnetic exploder. Their efforts aimed to resolve the persistent issues that led to premature explosions and unreliable performance. On January 20, 1944, Christie took a decisive step, ordering his submarines to deactivate the magnetic exploder. This was a critical acknowledgement of its fundamental unreliability. Despite continued attempts to modify and reintroduce it, the magnetic exploder was definitively abandoned in March 1944, marking a significant technological reset. The withdrawal of major Japanese fleet units from Truk to western ports in February 1944, ordered by Admiral Koga, created new opportunities for Christie's Australia-based submarines. Ultra-intelligence was crucial for guiding them to these high-value targets. Despite the torpedo issues, Christie's submarines inflicted substantial damage. Lafon, in the USS Rasher, sank the Tango Maru of 6,200 tons and the Ryusei Maru of 4,800 tons. Selby, in the USS Puffer, sank the Taiko Maru of 15,100 tons, the third largest Japanese merchant ship sunk to that point. Griffith, in the USS Bowfin, heavily damaged the 17,000-ton Japanese seaplane tender Kamoi, which was beached and later repaired. Broach, in the USS Hake, sank the Yamamizu Maru of 5,174 tons. Henderson, in the USS Bluefish, sank a 500-ton tanker. Lafon further sank the Nitai Maru of 6,400 tons. Even Christie, the commanding admiral, personally participated in a war patrol on the Bowfin, actively involved in periscope watch, challenging any perception of command being solely relegated to shore-based operations. One remarkable incident underscored the challenges of intelligence assessment. On March 12, 1944, a false alarm of a potential Japanese fleet sortie against Fremantle triggered a massive mobilization. 7 boats undergoing refit got to sea fully ready within 12 hours. This swift response demonstrated Allied readiness, but ultimately the threat was unrealized, highlighting the complexities of interpreting intelligence in the fog of war. General MacArthur's command, focused on the New Guinea campaigns, also frequently requested special submarine missions, diverting valuable assets for reconnaissance or supply. The ongoing war against Japanese shipping with a specific priority on tankers drove the operational tempo. The USS Bonefish, under Tom Hogan, was caught in a hurricane with winds up to 120 knots, a testament to the extreme conditions endured by submariners. The combined efforts of Allied submariners were making a critical difference. In April and May 1944, American submarines significantly disrupted Japanese reinforcement and strategic planning. On April 17, Rear Admiral Sadamichi Kajioka's Shanghai convoy departed. Kajioka, a veteran of Wake Island and the Port Moresby invasion, was tasked with transporting vital troops to New Guinea. But American codebreakers were tracking his every move. On the morning of April 26, Tommy Dykers in the USS Jack intercepted Kajioka's convoy off Luzon. Dykers fired 19 torpedoes in multiple attacks, sinking the Yoshida Maru I, a 5'4", 25-ton transport packed with a 3000-man Army regiment. Post-war records confirmed this, though initial post-action reports sometimes underestimated such crucial sinks. On May 6, Herb Andrews in the USS Gurnard continued the attack, sinking 3 large transports, the Aden Maru, 5,824 tons, the Taijina Maru, 6,995 tons, and the Tenshinzen Maru, 6,995 tons, and the Tenshinzen Maru, 6,800, and Makem-sei. These actions prevented the deployment of the better part of 2 army divisions to New Guinea, drowning approximately 6,000 Japanese troops in total. Gurnard later damaged a battleship credited with 32,700 tons of damage. On the same day, Frank Walker in the USS Krivale found his luck change, sinking the massive tanker Nishin Maru of 16,801 tons, the third largest Japanese merchant ship sunk to date. Krivale also performed a humanitarian mission, evacuating 41 refugees, including survivors of the Bataan Death March. The strategic importance of Biak became a new focal point for the Allies. When MacArthur's forces landed there on May 27, it forced a significant shift in Japanese naval priorities, triggering their reinforcement attempts. These efforts were desperate, and they were being watched. On May 13, Lowell Stone in the USS Lapan made the initial contact report of the Japanese fleet at Tawi, their main staging area. The next day, May 14, Tom Hogan in the USS Bonefish picked up a convoy of 3 tankers and 3 destroyers before seeing the main Japanese fleet itself through his periscope, a massive force of multiple aircraft characters, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. These contact reports provided vital intelligence. The Japanese force, initially reported to comprise 3 battleships and 5 other vessels, attempted to reinforce Biak. On May 31, Andrews in Gurnard and Harrell in Puffer made contact with them south of Mindanao. On June 1st, Harrell trekked the convoys toward Davao Gulf. Then, on June 3rd, Willard Lafon in the USS Rasher picked up part of the convoys. His contact report was so timely and accurate that the Japanese were forced to alter their plans and call off their immediate reinforcement effort. It was a significant strategic victory achieved without firing a shot. Lafon later spotted retiring Japanese cruisers, and on June 4th, Crowley in the USS Flyer sank the transport Hakasamaru. This period belonged to the destroyer killers. Sam Dealey in the USS Harder earned his formidable nickname. On June 6, Dealey encountered a convoy in Cebuto Passage and sank the destroyer Minatsuki. The very next day, June 7th, he sank the destroyer Hayanami. On June 8th, John Broach in the USS Hake sank the destroyer Kazegagumo deep within Davoga Gulf, a daring penetration of heavily defended waters. Dealey, after picking up guerrillas, sank another destroyer, the Tanikaze, on June 9th. This relentless series of attacks showed the aggressive spirit of American submariners and the resilience of their ships. The quality of the Harder's construction was frequently praised, with gratitude extended to the workmen and designers at the Electric Boat Company for building a fine ship capable of withstanding severe pounding. The Marianas invasion was now paramount. Admiral Nimitz recognized its decisive importance, especially for future B-29 superfortress bases. A huge armada of 535 ships and auxiliaries was assembled to land 128,000 troops. Task Force 58, with 15 heavy and light carriers, would provide air cover. But submarines had to soften the target first. From May 10th, Coy in the USS Silversides sank 3 ships in the Marianas. On May 29th, he sank 2 more ships in a convoy, bringing aviation gasoline. A wolf pack known as Blair's Blasters, comprising submarines like Blakely and Clary, reached the Marianas on May 31st. Their mission to interdict Japanese Convoy No. 4, carrying critical reinforcements. On June 1st, Clary sank the Toho Maru. On June 2nd, Blakely sank the Kayo Maru. By June 4th, Blakely had sunk another freighter, part of Convoy 4, carrying military packs and landing force equipment. On June 5th, Blakely sank 2 more freighters, the Tamahime Maru and Takaika Maru. On June 8th, Clary sank the Kashima-san Maru and the Have Maru. Blair's Blasters destroyed 5 out of 7 ships in Convoy No. 4. This systematic interdiction significantly degraded Japanese defensive capabilities, making the invasion of the Marianas an easier task for the U.S. Navy. Admiral Ozawa's A-Go plan, designed to annihilate the U.S. Pacific Fleet, was already being dearly impacted by this constant submarine activity. Japanese training for new air wings was curtailed, and valuable warships were sunk or damaged. In total, 7 men of war were sunk, including the light cruiser Yubari, 5 fleet destroyers, and 1 old destroyer. 24 important merchant ships were sunk, 6 tankers, 4 troopships, and 14 freighters. The effectiveness of U.S. submarines was also contributing to a holocaust for Japanese submarines. 9 out of about a dozen Japanese submarines operating in the Marianas were sunk. The Battle of the Philippine Sea, fought in June 1944, was to be a pivotal clash of carrier fleets, but American submarines played a crucial, often uncredited role in its outcome. Admiral Ozawa's Plan A-Go was ambitious. He commanded 9 aircraft carriers, hoping to pit them against the U.S. Navy's 15. He also expected support from 500 land-based aircraft from Guam, Rota, and Yap. His goal, a decisive victory akin to the Battle of Tsushima. But his plans were known. On June 13th, Ozawa's fleet steamed out of Tawi, and American submarines were there to greet them. The USS Redfin under Austin was the first to sight Ozawa's force, but could not close to firing range. On June 15th, at 4:22 p.m., the USS Flying Fish, under Commander Robert Risser, picked up Ozawa's fleet in the San Bernardino Strait. Risser observed 3 carriers, 3 battleships, and other vessels. His detailed contact report provided the first concrete evidence of Ozawa's fleet movement, allowing Admiral Spruance to delay the Guam invasion and redeploy his forces. At 6:45 p.m. the same day, The USS Seahorse under Slade cutter sighted smoke east of Surigao Strait, tracking a force that included the super battleships Musashi and Yamato. Despite suffering a main motor failure, limiting his speed, cutter diligently pursued. The submarines, however, were not merely scouts. They delivered devastating blows. On June 19th, the USS Albacore, under Commander James Blanchard, found herself positioned in the midst of Ozawa's main carrier group. Despite issues with his torpedo data computer, forcing him to fire by seaman's eye, Blanchard fired 6 bow tubes, scoring a crucial hit on Ozawa's flagship. The Tai-Ho, under Commander James Blanchard, fired 6 bow tubes, scoring a crucial hit on Prete. The Tai-Ho, a new 31,000-ton behemoth and the largest Japanese carrier, initially appeared to weather the hit, but the internal damage was catastrophic, and she eventually sank due to internal explosions, a profound blow to Ozawa's command structure and morale. Just hours later, the USS Kavala, under Commander Herman Kostler, which had collided with a whale en route to its station, located the Japanese fleet. After receiving orders to prioritize the destruction of tankers, Kostler engaged, sinking the veteran carrier Shokaku with 4 torpedo hits. The Shokaku, a veteran of Pearl Harbor, was a major loss for the Japanese carrier force. These critical submarine strikes preceded what would become known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, where approximately 330 Japanese planes were lost on June 19th, crippling Japan's naval air power. The submarines had already struck at the heart of the carrier force itself. However, the battle was not without its challenges and debates. The USS Finback, under Jordan, sighted searchlight beams twice, but a radio transmitter failure prevented timely contact reports. The USS Stingray's jammed transmission on June 18th mistakenly led Spruance to believe the Japanese were farther east, influencing his decisions. On June 20th, Spruance belatedly headed west to hunt Ozawa, a strategic choice that allowed the remainder of Ozawa's fleet to escape direct pursuit, a decision still debated by historians. The Battle of the Philippine Sea and the subsequent campaign for the Mariana Islands marked a decisive turning point in the Pacific War. The sinking of the carriers Hyochoko and Tai-Ho, along with heavy damage to the battleship Haruna and cruiser Maya, effectively ended Japan's carrier-based offensive capability. Admiral Ozawa, realizing his inability to mount a second strike, offered his resignation. The fall of Saipan on July 9, 1944, followed by Guam and Tinian, provided critical advanced bases for American operations. When Japan announced the loss of Saipan on July 18th, it sparked unprecedented shock and political upheaval, leading to Prime Minister Tojo's resignation. The psychological impact was profound, signaling the beginning of the end of Japan's ability to wage offensive warfare. Meanwhile, the American submarine force intensified its relentless campaign, not just against Japanese naval vessels, but against their own submarine fleet. June and July 1944 witnessed a holocaust for Japanese submarines. A dozen RO and I-class boats were sunk in the Marianas alone. By the end of 1944, approximately 40 Japanese submarines had been lost from all causes, effectively halving their submarine force, a loss from which it never recovered. American submarines continued their relentless interdiction of Japanese supply lines. The nickel ship, the sole source of nickel for Japan, departed monthly from Pomala in the Gulf of Barney, a priority target. Eugene Bennett Fluckey, in the USS Barb, achieved significant success, sinking 2 ships and meeting Admiral Lockwood's personal 5 ships challenge. Frank Clements Acker, in the USS Pomfret, showed aggressive tactics by closing to a minefield and engaging large enemy ships. However, the risks remained. David Zabriskie Jr., in the USS Herring, sank 4 ships totaling nearly 10,000 tons, but was lost with his boat to Japanese shore batteries. James Searle Clark, in the new Manitowoc boat, USS Collett, had his patrol end in disaster off northeast Honshu, likely sunk by Japanese forces. Internal conflicts also persisted. General MacArthur, recognizing the heroism of submariners, offered Army awards to deserving Navy submarine skippers. However, Admiral Kinkaid blocked these Army awards, leading to political maneuvering and forcing Admiral Nimitz to initiate a summit conference between Admirals Lockwood and Christie in Brisbane on July 4 and 5, 1944, to integrate submarine activities and resolve these inter-service disputes. Amidst these high-stakes strategic battles, the coordinated wolf pack tactics of USA submarines were demonstrating their overwhelming effectiveness. The period from June to July 1944 saw these packs operating with daring and precision, though not without challenges. Slade DeVille Cutter, commander of the USS Seahorse, was known for his awesomely cool and able demeanor at sea. His Seahorse accumulated a distinguished record of 19 ships, sunk over 4 patrols, earning him a place as Lockwood's pride and joy. In June 1944, Cutter and Gallagher of the USS Bang rendezvoused in a strait. Shortly after midnight on June 27th, Cutter picked up a 10-ship convoy. Believing his packmates were too far away, he maintained radio silence, a decision that in hindsight might have cost a larger coordinated strike. He sank the 5,000-ton tanker Medan Mam, but his belief of sinking more was often not borne out by post-war records. The Wolf Pack, Mickey Finns, under William Vincent Mickey O'Regan in the USS Guardfish, moved in on a crucial convoy on July 11th. On July 15th, O'Regan received a new Lutra intercept on an important southbound convoy, HI-71. The next night, July 16th, Bub Ward, in the Guardfish, executed a devastating night surface attack, sinking multiple ships. A tanker loaded with gasoline blew up immediately, sending flames thousands of feet high, a spectacular and horrific display. This single action potentially accounted for 5 ships. Another pack, Wilkins Wildcats, including the USS Sawfish, under Alan Boyd Bannister, operated in the Luzon Strait. On July 19th, Bannister sank what he assumed was a Japanese submarine, the I-29. Post-war records confirmed the sinking of I-29, but the fear of friendly fire, of mistakenly sinking one's own side, was a constant, unspoken burden for submariners. The USS Apagon, part of the Mickey Finns pack, suffered a severe setback. During a close-quarters engagement, she rammed a freighter. The damage was extensive, bent periscopes and shears, 45 degrees, a torn periscope, and a flooded conning tower. The physical risks of these aggressive tactics were undeniable. In the East China Sea, Dick O'Kane, in the USS Tang, was pushing the boundaries of submarine warfare, hypothesizing that Japanese ships were hugging the coast in shoal water to avoid submarines. O'Kane adopted daring, close-to-shore patrols, often operating just 1.5 miles off the Japanese mainland in less than 250 feet of water. He sank 2 large freighters on July 4th, the Asukazen Maru and Yamaika Maru. His patrol would ultimately be credited with 10 confirmed ships for 39,100 tons, the best war patrol by any submarine in terms of confirmed ships, sunk, earning him his 3rd Navy Cross. On July 25th, a massive convoy of 14 large ships, plus half a dozen escorts, was intercepted in the South China Sea. Reuben Whitaker, in the USS Flasher, sank the light cruiser Oi of 5,700 tons, a significant naval target. But perhaps the wildest submarine attack was executed by Red Ramage in the USS Parche. On July 31st, making radar contact with a big convoy, Ramage launched an intense close-quarters surface engagement, firing an astonishing 19 torpedoes. Dave Welchel in the USS Steelhead also attacked the same convoy. Ramage was credited with sinking 2 ships for 14,700 tons and half credit for the 9,000-ton transport Yoshino Maru. His extraordinary bravery earned him a Medal of Honor recommendation. This period was also tragically marked by a devastating humanitarian disaster. On the night of September 11th, 12, American submarines, operating against convoy Hai-71, sank the Japanese transports Rakuyo Maru and Nankai Maru. Unbeknownst to the American crews, these ships were carrying British and Australian prisoners of war. Over 1,000 POWs were tragically lost, many drowning or succumbing to exposure. On September 15th, survivors were discovered by the USS Sealium under Eli Reich. The harrowing rescue operation underscored the brutal, unforeseen consequences of submarine warfare. By mid-1944, the nature of the Pacific War was being decisively shaped by the relentless efficiency of American submarines. Wolf-packing tactics had been formalized and perfected, and crucially, the long-standing issues with torpedo reliability, the Mark 14 steam and Mark 15 electric torpedoes had largely been resolved. The United States Navy now possessed reliable, lethal weaponry. This newfound capability was magnified by intelligence. By mid-1944, over 5,000 people were engaged in code-breaking efforts, tracking most major Japanese ship and convoy movements with unprecedented precision. Against this backdrop of evolving warfare, a pivotal strategic debate emerged within the Allied command. Admiral King, a powerful figure in U.S. naval planning, proposed bypassing the Philippines entirely. His vision was to strike directly against Formosa, to put a cork in the bottle of Japanese sea communications, effectively strangling Japan via submarine blockade. King believed this aggressive submarine-centric strategy could end the war within 2 or 3 months. He commanded almost 140 fleet boats, roughly 100 at Pearl Harbor under Lockwood and 40 in Australia under Christie. However, General MacArthur had made a solemn promise to the Filipino people, "I shall return." His immense ego and political influence weighed heavily in the strategic discussions. MacArthur argued that 16 million Filipinos would be left to wither on the vine if bypassed. President Roosevelt, influenced by political expediency and MacArthur's powerful personal appeal, ultimately decided to proceed with the invasion of the Philippines. This decision, while fulfilling a promise, would lead to significantly higher Allied casualties and potentially prolong the war, a missed opportunity for a quicker, less costly end to the conflict. The importance of code-breaking was underscored by a dramatic event in the Atlantic. On June 4, 1944, Captain Daniel Vincent Gallery, commanding a U.S. Navy hunter-killer group, conceived and executed the daring plan to capture a German U-boat intact. The U-505 was forced to the surface off Cape Blanco and successfully boarded by a team led by Lieutenant David. This capture yielded invaluable intelligence, German U-boat codebooks. Admiral King was furious at the potential compromise of this ultra-secret source, nearly court-martialing Gallery for risking the intelligence. Yet, Admiral Donitz, unaware of the capture, never changed his codes. The immense secrecy surrounding U-505 narrowly averted a strategic disaster, protecting a source of intelligence that was sinking dozens of U-boats in the Atlantic. This strategic debate and the U-505 incident also implicitly debunked a persistent myth. General Marshall's detailed letter to Thomas Dewey prevented the political exploitation of Pearl Harbor, confirming that intelligence on Japanese codes was being read at the time of the attack, but its scattered nature prevented a full picture. Despite the strategic diversion to the Philippines, USDs, U.S.-towed biotators of Kea, submarines continued their devastating work during the lull between the Marianas and Palau invasions. In July and August 1944, Lockwood and Christie mounted over 90 war patrols. Japan was losing an average of 50 merchant ships a month for about 200,000 tons, a rate their shipbuilding capacity simply could not match. On August 18, 1944, the USS Hardhead fired 15 torpedoes, claiming 10 hits and sinking the light cruiser Natori of 5,700 tons and a 10,000-ton transport. The USS Bowfin, on July 22, sank the 6 154-ton transport Tsushima Maru, later revealed to be carrying thousands of children who perished in the sinking. She also destroyed 2 freighters in harbor. The USS Pintado and Croker sank 5 ships for 38 500 tons in the East China Sea. The Pintado also sank a 400-ton freighter. The risks remained constant. Manning Kimmel, skipper of the USS Robalo, was lost when his boat struck a Japanese mine in Luzon Strait, a waterway that had been mined by the Japanese in March 1943. This was a stark reminder that even with superior intelligence and technology, the dangers of the submarine war were ever present, demanding immense sacrifice as the unseen force continued its relentless strangulation of the Empire of Japan. But the USS Flyer, under John Crowley, departed Fremantle on August 12, 1944. Just weeks later, in August 1944, she struck a Japanese mine in Luzon Strait, the same deadly waterway that claimed the Robalo. This double loss of Flyer and Robalo to mines was a grim turning point. It prompted a formal investigation. Admiral King appointed Freeland Daubin to uncover the truth. The critical threat of unmapped minefields was undeniable. Survivors like Jim Liddell described an intense explosion and a harrowing struggle to reach shore. Their resilience was a testament to the human spirit in the face of immense danger. The Luzon Strait was declared off-limits, a significant strategic shift. Despite these heavy submarine losses, the mission continued. Ultra-intelligence was crucial, directing boats to vital targets. Christie's boats operating from Australia focused on convoys to Manila and Indochina. Ben's Buster's pack alone sank 13 ships for 89,100 tons. Gordon Selby, skipper of the Puffer, embarked on aggressive patrols. On August 1, 1944, he attacked a ship north of Sibatu Passage, believing it sunk. By August 12, Selby sank the tanker Tekon the Furu and damaged the Shimpo Maru. His total tonnage reached 7.5 ships for about 38,000 tons. James Alvan Adkins, known as Caddy, took command of the Cod. On his first patrol, he was credited with sinking 4 ships, later reduced to 2 post-war. Enrique Haskins, in the Guitarro, attacked a convoy off Manila on August 7, 1944. He sank the frigate Kusakaki in a spectacular explosion. Haskins also sank the freighter Chene Alum. Mike Shea, skipper of the Raton, joined forces with Haskins. Shea reported a cruiser burning furiously. Eric Barr, commanding the Bluegill, had already sunk the light cruiser Yubari. In 2 patrols, Barr sank 6 confirmed ships, including 3 in a single aggressive patrol. Carl Tiedemann, in the Gualina, believed he was targeting a cruiser. He fired 12 torpedoes, sinking what was later confirmed as a new type of landing craft, 1,500 tons. But these were not effortless victories. Malcolm Garrison's Sandlance faced immense anti-submarine fire, sinking a 3,000-ton freighter. Sandlance was nearly lost in the Celebes Sea. She endured continuous bombing and depth charges. A torpedo failure saw one run hot in the tube, another fired prematurely. The din of the depth charges was uninterrupted, as if the whole Jap fleet had unloaded so rapidly. This was a stark debunking of any myth of easy conquests. The dangers demanded immense sacrifice. Sam Dealey, the legendary destroyer killer, was a figure of immense renown. He had sunk 16 ships for 54,000 tons. His aggressive leadership sent shockwaves throughout the force. On the night of August 20, 1944, Dealey and his pack converged on a convoy in Paluan Bay. The next morning, August 21st, Harder, Haddo, Ray, Guitarro, and Rayton sank 4 ships. That evening, Dealey and Chester Nimitz moved towards Manila Bay. On August 22nd, they picked up 3 small pips on radar. Near daybreak on August 23rd, Nimitz attacked a tanker and a destroyer, but the hunter became the hunted. On August 24, 1944, at 5:54 a.m., Frank Haler picked up propeller screws near Dassel Bay. At 7:28 a.m., 15 depth charge explosions were heard. Sam Dealey and the USS Harder were presumed lost, likely to a minesweeper attack. The death of this highly revered skipper reignited debates about operational risks and judgment. Admiral Kincaid became involved in award disputes and investigation oversight. General MacArthur approved the Army Distinguished Service Cross for Dealey. He also supported the recommendation for Dealey's Medal of Honor. Murray Tichenor, operations officer, testified to Dealey's recovery from fatigue. The heavy submarine losses demanded a strategic re-evaluation. Admiral Dobin's investigation into Flyer and Robalo found no fault with Christie or his staff. This countered assumptions of operational negligence. But the war's trajectory was about to pivot dramatically in September 1944, as U.S. invasions of Palas and Morotai began. Admiral Halsey made a startling discovery in the central Philippines. The unexpected lack of resistance revealed a hollow shell. On September 13, 1944, Halsey dispatched a bold strategic proposal. He advocated bypassing further invasions. He urged a direct leap to Leyte. This fundamentally altered the Pacific Campaign's trajectory. The crippling of Japanese logistics by submarine sinkings demonstrated significant impact. August 1944 saw incredible success in the Luzon Strait. 8 wolf packs, comprising about 25 submarines, sank 56 ships for 250,000 tons. This included 2 escort carriers. Halsey's subsequent claims from the Philippines were staggering. Approximately 1,000 Japanese aircraft destroyed, around 150 ships sunk. The unseen force was now a dominant, undeniable presence. Its relentless strangulation had become an unavoidable fact of war. The strategic re-evaluation of the entire Pacific campaign was underway,